What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Maria Britos. And guys, we're heading into almost the end of a month. We're heading into the summer here in the United States and the winter over there in Paraguay. But as I must admit, I feel like I've seen a lot of people complaining about how cold it is recently. I think to myself, my God, take you guys here to the Northeast in the middle of the winter, you guys will suffer. You think it's even worse now? Think about coming here in the winter. But in any case, what has been heating up has been these games happening for Paraguayan teams. Obviously, we're still in the closing stages of the Apertura season. The Libertadores and the Sudamericana is getting very interesting, in particular for the three Paraguayan teams playing in the Copa Libertadores. A big matchup happening between two familiar foes, which will also coincide just days after they have to play each other in the local league, and that is the Superclásico. We're going to dive into that, talk about how Cerro Porteño and Olimpia are going to go through different routes for not just the league, but also in the Libertadores, and talk about what's been going on in other competitions like the Sudamericana, obviously seeing what kind of miracles can happen there. Libertad are also still in a spot to qualify to the round of 16. I cannot wait. Let's go into this. Let's go to Fede Perez, who I can see had his mate right there right before when we started the show. Let's show it to there we go with the bombilla and everything. I love it. I love it, Fede. I mean, surely it's not that cold for you, is it? I mean, I know you've been growing up in hot climate most of your life, but surely is it time to get the mate out?
I'm having my mate around these days. It's been a cold week over here, Roberto. Yeah, and especially the first cold, you feel it kind of different. The body needs to adjust to it, and I'm on that time right now, and it's crunch time. It's that time around the year where you see the calendar all tied up, games being played every 3 days, pretty much here in Paraguay. Teams playing Libertadores, playing the local league. Paraguay is not going to the World Cup, but we still have this very tight calendar we need to respond to, and it hasn't been easy for teams actually. We have a lot of injuries, players not 100%. Some not taking advantage of the chances they are getting. I'm talking about some of the young guys. It's not easy for them. The stage they have to play at. Much rotation going around for the coaches. Also, the decision calling has to be really well in this very important time of the season. And we're looking at the Apertura, and it's coming to an end. Libertad's options, their odds are increasing, I would say, as so is their lead in the table, as for what has happened recently in the Apertura. And talking about the Libertadores, I'm actually not that satisfied with what I saw out of the three teams, Libertad, Olimpia, and Cerro Porteño. I thought this was going to be the week for at least one of those three teams to make their way to the next round, and unfortunately that hasn't been sealed yet. We're going to have to wait for that last round of games, but this is Libertadores. We're kind of waiting for this drama to the last minute games, and it's going to come down to that, especially in that those super classicos that we're actually going to have, because we're having this weekend first come around. We're going to have it for the local tournament, and then we're going to have the Libertadores game. Such a crucial game. It is very important for Cerro Porteño, also the local league match, because they're still trying to catch up to Libertad with 6 points away right now. So yeah, we have very important matches coming up, and I'm really happy about Guarani because it is also one of our anchors teams, Maria's team. I want to talk about Guarani, what they're doing in Sudamericana. That's really exciting. I mean, this is a team that barely has any budget to make it in Sudamericana, and they're really going up against a giant, a Brazilian giant like Inter, and they still have a chance at it in their last game. They depend on what Inter can do with the Ecuadorian team, but hey, look, Guarani brought it to the Sudamericana, and I'm really happy for them. We got so much to talk about, Roberto, so let's get the ball rolling.
Let's get the ball rolling indeed. Let's go all the way to South Beach first before we get to that, because I think there is a lot of, I'm sure you're looking at WhatsApp groups, you're looking on Twitter. There are a lot of fans from both sides of Asuncion, the red and blue side and the white and black side, that are looking pretty nervous these next few days. I mean, you look at how potentially, Maria, for both these teams, their season is all dependent on both of these games where both of them have to face each other. So it's it must be very tense for both Chiqui Arce's side and Julio Cesar Cáceres' side.
Of course, definitely tense. Hey guys, How are you? It's been a long time since I've been back. But yeah, it's been I think one of the rarest occasions in the Libertadores that, Cerro and Olimpia get to be in the same group and face each other and have the Clásico, within a few days of each other. And so that obviously puts a lot of pressure for each team. They want to perform their best. They want to get the best results out of these two opportunities. And each of these clásicos mean a lot because one of them is for the Libertadores to qualify, and the other one is to continue into the run to first place in the season in the first division. So it's definitely a lot of nerve wracking, and for the fans, I can't imagine how it is in Asuncion right now. It must be, rivals everywhere. So I'm sure Fede can tell us about that. I wish I can be in that atmosphere right now. It must be so good. It must be so cool. I missed that part of Paraguay.
It must be really heated, you would say, Fed. And I mean, yeah, we talk about the cold weather now, but heading into this big Super Classico that we're going to talk about first, the one happening in the Libertadores. Obviously, this is the big one that I think is the most important for both these teams because the results have to go their way in order to qualify. Cerro Porteño, on the other hand, are in a better spot because of the points that they received, and they're coming off a monumental result in Montevideo against Peñarol, a really, really tight game. We saw them barely get the chance to really take advantage. They even had a penalty that was missed from Peñarol to really secure that point. But nevertheless, Fede, going into that game against Olimpia, they are with 8 points at the moment. They have enough to qualify at least to the Sudamericana should they lose. I mean, basically, Cerro Porteño's case is to obviously win or draw against Olimpia, but nevertheless, they're going to be going for all of it. And as for Olimpia, they're coming off a 2-1 loss to Colón after taking the lead, actually, in Santa Fe, thanks to Hugo Quintana goal, only for them to really self-destruct with goals from Letora in the 41st and 84th minute. So Olimpia need a miracle. They need to win at least by 2 goals or more at La Nueva Olla, which is going to be a heated cauldron on Wednesday when the game happens. I mean, how do you see this one? Because for both these sides, I'm seeing yin and yang, really.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect out of these two games. So first of all, we have the local league match coming up. There, probably Olympia's gonna reserve a lot of players waiting for the game against Cerro in Libertadores, just because they have pretty much nothing to do in the title race. So obviously Cerro has to put in more players in that game, even though in the last local league matches Cerro has put in a lot of young players, and that hasn't been good for them from the results. They haven't been able to win. They haven't looked like themselves, and that's why Libertad kind of got away from them in these last couple of games. Now it's 6 points away, so maybe it's that time of the year, that time of the season to make that decision, for the head coach. If you put all your firepower in this first game and also in the second game against Olimpia, or if you reserve a couple of players, not make them play at all, because if you take them to the bench and you put them in the second half, it's pretty much the same. Even though if you make them play 45 minutes or less, I think you're gonna make the player. You can make the player tired before a very important match. So unfortunately, I'm not happy about the situation that it comes down to this, Roberto. Just one game, and it's one going home and one going forward. I would have liked for both of them to qualify. Unfortunately, we're in this situation where even Olimpia can get out of everything or not have an international year from now on. It could be over for Olimpia in the worst case scenario. If they lose, if Peñarol wins, I mean, they could even be out of Sudamericana. which is an option. We've always said this for Olimpia, especially because of what's happening with them this year, not being able to sign big deals, not to bring in big players in the roster. So Olimpia is kind of in a tight situation, and they've had a very long Libertadores. They came in to the group stage after beating 3 teams to get to this stage. So you have a very tired team. You have a team that's also with a lot of injuries on them. And I think these injuries are very important. Antolina Alcaraz in defense. You're not going to have Richard Ortiz for these couple of games either. And, these are very important players, not just in what they give to the team inside the pitch, but also outside. They're leaders. And Olimpia, I thought that was going to need them. And especially in this last game against Colón, you could see that, they just didn't have enough in that midfield. They also missed out Marcos Gomez and Fernando Cardoso, who were suspended. So Olimpia didn't have their full roster. They're going to get a couple of players back for this second game against Cerro Porteño. And I think they're going to make a run for it. I think they're going to make it tight against Cerro Porteño. And I think this is going to be a classic Libertadores battle. It's going to come down to the last minute. And Olimpia needs 2 goals. So Olimpia is going to go at it. Olimpia is going to attack, and they're going to look for this game straight away. That's what I'm seeing in this Libertadores match that's coming up. Obviously, you have Julio Cáceres. He needs to make up his mind in a couple of things because, he's been using Otálvaro on the right back and putting Salazar in midfield instead of Alex Silva. That's kind of been weird for me. Alex Silva has been picking up his pace. He's been playing a little bit better in the local league. So you're kind of seeing that he's trying to force his way back into the starting 11, but he didn't put him there against Colón. So it was kind of weird. I didn't like that Otálvaro Salazar on the right side. I'm not liking what I saw from Hugo Quintana and William Candia in that midfield. They were missing Marco Gomez. They were missing Richard Ortiz. So they needed to change it around a bit. And those two can't defend. They're not aggressive to get the ball back. So Olimpia was a little light there in midfield, and with players that were probably not in the plans of the coach a couple of games ago, but he needed them for this game, and they just didn't show up in a very important part of the team that really needs to work at it. And then you have Guillermo Paiva kind of losing it. I mean, he hasn't been scoring lately. He started out really well. He started out hot, scoring, becoming the top striker for this team. And lately, it's been Walter Gonzalez who has been scoring more. So there's a couple of decisions there where the Olimpia coach needs to make up his mind. And I think these days are going to be crucial for that decision making and to see what kind of team he puts in the pitch, because there are players that I believe are in a better moment than those that he is picking. So it's going to be very important for Olimpia to put in the best team against Cerro Porteño. And Cerro's getting players back, Roberto. Olimpia's losing players, but Cerro's actually getting players back. We saw again Angel Lucena in midfield. We saw again Alan Benitez coming back in the midfield, in right midfield. But this team needs Claudio Aquino. If he doesn't step up, the team does not produce much, and that's what I'm kind of worried about. Cerro Porteños, their attack is not looking that well. They don't have many players to move that attack around. If it's not Marcelo Moreno Martins and Fernando Romero, they really don't have that much to change it up. They have so many injured players, and if they lose 1 or 2 more, I don't know how they're gonna come up with a team to play against Olimpia in a couple of days. I think Olimpia has a big chance, and they can really mess up Cerro Porteño's plans. I mean, Cerro was really happy with that point. They were really happy with that tie against Peñarol. I even think they could have won that game if they would have looked into it a little bit more. But they were just they were happy with the point, and now they know that they depend on themselves against Olimpia. This is going to be a clash between 2 Paraguayan giants, and I'm looking just straightforward to it because, just like you guys said, the atmosphere is going to be great. The stadium's probably going to be packed, and it's just going to come down to the players really on this game.
I think the fact that we have Olimpia and Cerro, a Clásico in the international stage, I think that's already one of a great accomplishment for our Paraguayan teams, to put on a good show for everyone, not just Paraguayan fans, but the entire world, or at least South America in this case, and really, show what our game is all about. But besides that, I think, if I were Olimpia, I will be kind of scared of facing Cerro right now. It's true, they haven't had much action in compared to what Olimpia has been doing, and it's obviously it's a different stage, it's a different competition in terms of how you play, in the Libertadores versus, or the Sudamericana versus, the first division. So the fact, like you mentioned, Fede, the fact that Cerro has been using, and Chiqui Arce has been using players that are younger, kind of resting his senior players. Maybe that could be a strategy from Chiqui Arce, and sort of help the team, rest up and have the energy so that they can really perform against Olimpia, because it comes down to this very game, a very decisive game, and a few points, maybe a goal difference could really make the actual difference, either going into the next stage or not. So Olimpia has a great challenge ahead. I think hopefully they do great. They take on this challenge and really continue to move forward. But it's always been the sort of like it comes down to that one last game sort of team that Olimpia is, at the last minute, they put on their shoes and make a run for it, and put on all the energy that they were missing this whole time. And at the end, now it's when they decide to, actually put on some work. So we'll see. It's very surprising. Libertadores anything can happen in the Libertadores. So looking forward to that one for sure. I think more than the first division one.
Well, it's going to be interesting because I think there are a lot of factors. And Fed, I want to go to you on this one because, looking into first that game in the first division, yes, these are two teams that obviously are fighting for that league title, which they've always done historically, but you can see that Olimpia has not been the same side that they have been recently. Cerro Porteño have also dropped up in that case as well. If anything, if we don't see that entertaining game that we see from this Superclásico, especially if it ends in a draw, the real winners from this one will be Libertad, because that's only going to secure the gap even further. And looking at the Cerro side, especially on the form that they're on, comparing to the Libertad side, who have been looking tremendously fantastic, only losing one game this season, Cerro cannot afford to drop points anymore. And I think if they do, then that just pushes Libertad to the title with, like, I think, if I'm correct, like 5 more weeks left, and they still have to play each other. But I think this league could be over before we know it if we see Cerro Porteño drop points yet again this weekend.
Yeah, that was Cerro Porteño's goal, right? Try to get to that game against Libertad with that small margin in between each team. And unfortunately, the gap has gotten bigger for Cerro Porteño because of this situation, because of putting new players in, putting players that haven't played much with each other. And I think they kind of felt the pressure also playing for the first team, for the first spot. And Libertad hasn't felt that pressure. I think Libertad has dealt with it pretty well, and they didn't have the injuries that Cerro Porteño had this season. Cerro did not get the same players from their bench as they have in their starting role, and unfortunately, that's the situation for Cerro Porteño. They're not in their best moment right now, but I do think they're getting very important players back, especially for this game against Olimpia. And the Superclásico in the local league, I think it's a great opportunity for these players that haven't showed up in these last 2 games, that probably haven't picked up the opportunities, especially for Cerro Porteño's players, to make a name for themselves and maybe even win a spot in this team for next season, because Cerro Porteño is going to have a lot of open spots in the roster for the clausura, for the second part of the year. And if Cerro Porteño can move forward into the next stages of the Libertadores, hey, for some of these young players, it could be a spot for them also. Game time in Libertadores. Cerro Porteño has a lot of those players right now due to the situations of the amount of injuries they have on the roster. So Chiquiasa has had has had the obligation of putting these youngsters in the roster maybe a little bit sooner than he would have liked. But it's now or never for some of these kids. And in a big team, you don't get that many opportunities. So it is that chance for them, for Damian Bobadilla, for Wilder Viera, those midfielders that we've seen that are new names maybe to the scene. But they're getting a lot more playing time in this season than they got in these last couple of years. So they need to take advantage of that. And it could be their first Superclásico, maybe for other players also. And I'm actually looking forward to it. I think that could be exciting in a match where many people aren't waiting much out of. A lot more people are obviously putting their attention in the Libertadores match just because of how spectacular it's going to be that night, that Libertadores feeling, and just because everything's going to be on the line in those 90 minutes. And it's going to be really exciting to see just how strong these two teams can be. I was here, Maria, and yeah, hopefully they do show the best out of each other. But sometimes in these clashes, it depends a lot on the ref. It depends on how the players like to play, because I'm seeing a lot of attitude, and I'm not liking it from certain players in Olimpia. I'm talking about Paiva fighting pretty much every defender that he comes across. I'm not liking certain attitudes from Derlis Gonzalez, fighting all the time with the refs, not really concentrated on the game. And yeah, obviously in Libertadores you got to play it on all grounds, but sometimes these players kind of look distracted more than with their head on the football. And that's what I'm not liking from Olimpia. Besides all the problems that they're having playing, right? Because that midfield does not have a pattern. You don't know what to expect from him. I still don't know what Olimpia is trying to play with Julio Cáceres. I don't know what the real style is still. I think they're still trying to find their way in this season with all these new players, with all these youngsters, and with all the injuries they've had. It has not been easy for either of these teams to get to the next stage, Roberto. So for whoever team ends up winning, I think they're gonna celebrate it big time, especially because of the team they're gonna go up against.
As Clásico is a Clásico, regardless of any situation that happens for both these sides. So, guys, I want to look forward to these two games, and I do want some predictions. Obviously, let's go to the first game in Para Uno. Obviously, it's going to be a different one. I'll go to Maria on this one. How do you see this Superclásico happening in the league? Obviously, just days before they take on each other in the Libertadores.
Well, like I was saying, I think it'll be a very different vibe than the Libertadores, because of the different meaning of each competition. The league, they're in both of these situations, in both of these competitions, they're right under each other. I believe Cerro is on top of Olimpia in both occasions. So, it's gonna be one of those fights, one of those games that they're gonna fight and they're gonna take out their claws. So, to me, I think this one in the Clásico, in the Apertura, will be a lot more calm. But obviously they want to get the points. Cerro wants to get closer and get to the first spot, and get Libertad out of there. So they have to win this one for them. And then on the other occasion in the Libertadores, it's more for Olimpia. They really need to win this competition, this game, so they can continue in the competition. If not, they'll just probably continue in the Sudamericana. So in each competition, it'll be a different situation. But I think both of them are going to be great. Probably the Apertura will be a little more calm, save their energy for the Libertadores game, Superclásico.
Do you see both of them qualifying to the next round, or do you see maybe just one of them going into it?
I think it's a possibility that they could both qualify. That'll be really cool. I would love to see that.
Fede, how do you see both these games faring out? The first one in Para Uno, and then obviously in the Libertadores at La Mahoya.
These are probably the hardest games to predict, just because of everything that's on the line for these players. The pressure is going to be on the players, and the atmosphere is just going to be great. I want to see how they handle it. I want to see how the coach responds to the situation. Also, I'm not liking what I'm seeing from Julio Cáceres and his decision making and the way he's trying to change the team during the games. I'm not liking that either. So I'm gonna go with Cerro Porteño actually on both games. I'm gonna go with Cerro Porteño on the local league, and I'm gonna go with Cerro Porteño also taking it from Olimpia, maybe a tie, maybe even winning it. But with the tie, it's enough for Cerro Porteño. But I do think they're going to try to win both of these games, especially the first game, the one for the Apertura. This is a very important game for Cerro Porteño, and they're really going to attack it from the first minute. And Olimpia is just going to be laid back, like Maria's saying, more of a relaxed match for them. And I think they're not gonna be expecting what's coming to them from Cerro Porteño. But hey, I might be wrong, but I'm putting my money on Cerro Porteño on these two games. They cannot miss out on the chance of still running after Libertad, and they cannot get out of this group in Libertadores. If that happens to Cerro Porteño, it's going to be a complete failure for them. If it happens for Olimpia, I think a lot of people are kind of expecting it from this team. So
I think you want them in the Sudamericana though as well. I mean, that's also
I do think they're going to do a lot better in Sudamericana, because I do think they have a roster for Sudamericana and they're not really ready for Libertadores with what they have. They don't have the budget to bring more players into this team like the Brazilian sides are going to probably do for the second half of the year. They're going to bring in European players. They're going to bring everything they can find out there in the transfer window, and Olimpia is not going to be able to do that. Cerro can do that. Cerro has money. Cerro can probably bring other strikers around Marcelo Moreno Martins, but they need to get through to the next stage. I think Cerro Porteño has more at stake than Olimpia in these two games, and I'm really hoping for them to be the team that responds to the challenge.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be very much a heated affair, and we'll definitely see what happens to both these teams in the local league and then in the Copa Libertadores, as another Paraguayan team who we had mentioned just briefly is running away, it seems, from the Apertura, but they are still in the fight to also get out of the group stage in the Libertadores, and that's obviously Libertad, currently on 7 points, leading the group ahead of Atletico Paranaense, who also have 7, the strongest with 6, and then Caracas as well. So it's a really tight group, actually, heading into the final day of this the Copa Libertadores group stage. Libertad have to take on the strongest at the Defensores del Chaco, whereas Atletico Paranaense take on Caracas. I mean, Fede, I want to go to you on this one, because it seems as if, though, this has always been a recurring theme for Dani Ganero, because we've always seen a Dani Ganero side run away with it in the local league. It seems to be a specialty. We've seen that time and time again. But now, heading into this crucial point, surely he doesn't mess up on the final day and overthinks it, and basically does not give Libertad the opportunity to qualify to the next round. It's a weird situation.
It is a weird situation, because Libertad had the opportunity in these last 2 games of the group stage to qualify and to pretty much put down there on this group, which the team that I thought was the strongest runner-up against Libertad, which was the Brazilian side, Paranaense, which actually beat Libertad 2-0 on this last game. And I'm really worried about Libertad's coach, Daniel Garnero, always losing these important tactical battles against bigger coaches with more experience. Paranaense now has 73-year-old Felipe Scolari, and he really showed him how it's done. And I was blown away by the fact that Garnero had nothing to come back. After making big mistakes with the ball, the team really didn't have that much attack, didn't really have, and I was actually surprised by the team he actually picked, because I was looking at the starting 11 right before coming on with you guys, and no center forward, putting Lorenzo Melgarejo up there. You have Oscar Tacuara Cardoso, you have Roque Santa Cruz, which are center forwards on the roster. They were available, but he chose to play that way with a bunch of midfielders, and that lasted 60 minutes until he wasn't stubborn enough, and he started bringing in players like Ernesto Caballero, Bautista Bernini, Roque, and even Tacuara. They ended up playing together, trying to put on a goal there and trying to make the team look a little bit better. But I did not like what Garnero put from the start in this game. I think he's been mixing it way too much, and he's actually kind of confusing the players. I don't even think the players know anymore who they're gonna play next to, just because he's been mixing way too much. I like the rotation, but when they overdo it, you can get these kind of surprises. And watch out for Libertad. It could happen to them also. I just said it. If it could be a complete failure for Cerro Porteño if they're out of everything. It's a complete failure if Libertad does not get out of this group and on the first spot also, Roberto. I mean, they've been up there pretty much ever since the first game, so they cannot lose this on the last game and against a Bolivian side. I'm not expecting that to happen. I'm not expecting that to happen.
Maria, it would certainly be a huge choke from them to do this, because I think when you look at it, they are Paraguay's best team at the moment. Even if we don't look at how they're doing in the league, you look at the roster they have, the best young talent. Okay, he's not playing, but he's injured, but still looking at the experience and the manager that they have, if they don't make it out of this group, it's going to be, heads will roll for Libertad if they don't do that. I mean, even if they make it to the Sudamericana, it's not in their plans to do that.
Exactly. I think we've been paying more attention to, other teams, and we kind of just forgot about Libertad. But yeah, they have everything that they have, and they really cannot qualify for the next round. It's what's the point? They're tied with Atletico Paranaense, so it's like you really have to I don't know, step over a rock and trip for them to mess it up. But they have a great team, like you guys are saying. They have all the support, all the equipment, all the money. They just really need to concentrate and really put forward a good plan. The coach needs to set up his mind, like Fede was saying, and really, put your ganas out there, put your everything that you have, so that you can continue and show everyone what you really are. I mean, they have done pretty well in the past few years in the Libertadores, so it is kind of expected for them to continue. So again, Libertadores, anything can happen, and I'm looking at a crazy next few games. So hopefully, they continue. They do qualify, but I'm expecting something crazy to happen.
Well, one team that we do have to really hope need something crazy, and we'll shift this to the final segment, is Guarani. Hard to believe that Guarani, a side that I think when we looked into this Copa Libertadores Sudamericana, group stage, they are still in the position to qualify. They got a dramatic win the other day against 9 de Octubre in Ecuador. They got 3 goals in the second half, which puts them in a good spot to qualify. You have to remember, only one team qualifies out of this group, guys. So they are currently level on points with Inter of Brazil, who only with 1 goal difference, Inter is leading the group, but they're going to need a huge favor from 9 de Octubre at the Bay Rio in Porto Alegre, plus with Guarani taking on Independiente Medellin in Colombia. Fede, as much as we have always been supportive of Guarani and their run in the Paraguayan First Division as well in other competitions, I don't know if they have enough to just get over the fence and qualify to the round of 16. I mean, I've seen stranger things in South American football, but I think as much as all of us wants this to happen, I don't see it.
Yeah, they lost points before, especially in that first game at home. That's where they let go of a couple of important points. They can still do it, but yeah, you kind of need a miracle because you do need Internet to win also, and Guarani needs to win by a couple goals. They're not gonna have it easy on the last match, but they're gonna play their lives out. They've been playing like that. If there's something that I'm liking out of Guarani is that spirit, right? To come to be a fighting team and to fight the games until the last play. That's happened in several matches from this Guarani, and uh, you love to see that. You love to see that fight in the team. You love to see that, just like Maria's saying, that will to play, the team that really sweats it out there, and the players are beat after the game, and you're seeing that out of Guarani. The players are leaving it all out there in every single one of these games in Sudamericana, and they're making history. Look, Guarani just coming out of this win against 9 de Octubre, for them, this is the first win outside of the country for Guarani. I mean, this is huge. It could have come against Inter because they were beating Inter most of the game. That could have been their first win away from Paraguay, but they've done so much in this Sudamericana. I just think they need to be proud of themselves, and I do think we have a couple of players that have actually stand out in this team. Richard Salinas, and I would also mention Mario Tasu. He's been scoring in pretty much every game for this team, and he's been very important. He's only 25 years old. He still has so much to grow. This is his second time around in Sudamericana because he played it last year for River. So this is a player that's getting experience. This is a player that's kind of growing in a small team that could catch the attention of bigger teams, be it here in Paraguay or be it outside of the country. And that's the opportunity that Sudamericana gives to these kind of teams. Thankfully, we have Guarani still having a chance for it, because if we depended on the other Paraguayan team, General Caballero, oh, that was just pity. 6-0 they lost in their last game, and they've been out of it. They have no chance whatsoever in these last couple of games. They're on relegation points. Their head is totally on another place. But losing 6-0 on an international stage is not what you want to see from a Paraguayan team, and that was just shameful. But thankfully, we had Guarani standing out there and winning it in the last minute against 9 de Octubre to put some suspense in this Group E.
Fingers crossed, obviously, for Guarani, and hope that they can indeed do something here, guys, as we cap off another great show of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Maria Britos, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.